shop in Dickens. There's carvings all over the place and relief and 3D. Amazingly talented, incredibly generous guy. I'm glad we're all here and we're able to watch this. When you want me to show people what the setup is, you want me to do that now?
Let's do that.
Yeah, so Michael wants y'all to see this fabulous setup. So I'm going to try to do this with my laptop, so be patient with me. And then I'll turn it over to Michael. And there he is. And you can see this amazing technological marvel, which includes this ring light. There's a new monitor now. Can you see me on your?
Yep. So
there's a monitor when it's not being blocked by the ring light from this side of the building. So if you come to Michael's, it'll be a much cooler experience. And if you can't come, this experience will be pretty cool too.
This will be pretty close.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let Michael take it away. And if you have questions, type them in the chat. I'll call on you, unmute yourself. You can ask your question and you'll remute yourself. Go for it.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in and stopping in. One of the first things I want to do is, introduce myself, of course. My name is Michael Kehs, and I have been a professional wood turner, wood carver, woodworker since 2013. And I've been doing this kind of thing since 1981. I started everything and just being professional with it. Not 2006, I'm sorry, longer than that. Anyway, I really have to thank the people that have put this together for me, and they've donated so much, and their time and their money and their efforts and their expertise into putting this together so that I'm able to do these live demos for you folks. So today's project is going to be fire sanding and coloring, and I'm going to hold up a couple pieces here. This is one of the first ones I did a while ago. This is poplar with some red on the backside, there's some green. And when I saw this, the way that fire sanding made something as banal and so plain as poplar into something really cool and interesting, I just thought I had to look into it a little bit more. Here's another one. This one I just did the other day. So this is some purple and gold. This is ash. And ash is one of my favorites. It really does take the color well, and it's a nice contrast between the dark and the light. So I'm told that most wood turners like to see some wood chips flying. So we're not going to just do torching and burning. We're going to do a little bit of turning too. So with this piece I've got in the headstock here, it's a piece of poplar, and we are going to turn the face of a bowl like those bowls I just showed you on this one. I have another one that I'll do the base in. Before we get started, I want to talk to you about safety. So I'm going to be wearing a face shield while I'm working. You should wear one as well. If it gets a little weird sound-wise, just let me know. I've got my safety glasses on too. If it doesn't sound right, I'll take it off. But I'm going to wear it for the most part. Other things to think about when we're here at the lathe is how we stand. We want to have a good stance. We want to make sure that we're stable. We don't want to have long hair getting caught in anything. Sleeves. These sleeves are short sleeves, so they're not too close to the machine. If you have long sleeves, make sure they're taped up or very tight to begin with. I'm going to be using a torch, so I'm going to make sure I have a fire extinguisher handy. That's right back here. Also, when we start burning, we want to make sure we get rid of all the wood chips that are close by. If you got the dust collector going, make sure you turn that off. Last thing you want to have is some sparks going into the dust collector, catching your barrel of chips on fire later, because that's what will happen. It'll be later. All right. So anyway, let's get into the demo. Piece of poplar, just normal piece of poplar here. Someone would like to know, Mike, if you're using green or dry. Everything that I'm using today is dry, and since I'm heating it with a torch, I want it to be dry, because with the moisture in there, heating with a torch is going to cause it to crack and move much more quickly than the dry will. Anyway, let's go for an overhead shot. Normally when you're doing this, do you pre-turn, then let the wood dry? Nah, normally this is going to be all dry. Just going to start out dry. Yep. So does this sound okay? You guys can hear this all right? Not
Yes.
like that? All right. All right, so I'm going to be doing the top side, the open side of the bowl. And with these vessels, I try to have a wide rim and a small bowl. That just gives more room for the coloring in that. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've got a 5/8 bowl gouge. I'm not really sure of the grind on that. As we're going across, if I have this tool over like that, I'm kind of plowing straight into the side grain. If I just rotate it up a little, it's going to cut easier. It's more of a slicing action. And it's also a leaning action, a leaning motion. I'm not really pushing the tool with my arms. I'm actually leaning with my whole body into that cut. I'm going to true up the edge a little bit. And now I want to just do the bowl section. You want to start out here like this. Rotate that tool in. I think I want to go up. This will probably be a better view for you. So I'm going to rough it in with this 5/8 gouge, and I probably could finish with this, but I actually like to do my finish cuts with a 1/4-inch bow gouge. The 1/4-inch bow gouge is going to give me a better cut. One of the other things with getting a different tool out is it's already sharp too. So my final cut can be with the sharpest tool possible. It has a shorter bevel, which allows me to follow this curve in here better without giving me bruises from the back of the tool. I do have some of the heel ground off, but I could grind more off on this one. After a while, so with these bow gouges, I like to take the heel of the tool off. Let's see if we can get a little closer here. Oh, that's this, yeah. Well, let's go to the overhead camera then. There we go. So you can see where I've got a secondary bevel on the back side of this tool. I could take more of that off. You can see there's a little bit on this one as well. But after you grind it a few times, you have to put that back on there. And I just didn't on these yet. So that the heel of this tool is what's going to leave a bruise mark in the inside of the bowl. So we've got that. Now we've got this recess in here. This is all ready to be sanded and then fire sanded and colored. But we don't really need to see that sanding here. It's noisy and we're not going to do that. So we are going to be a Julia child here and take this out. And put this piece in. Voila. Sanded. So when I sand these, did you see that? I bumped the tool rest into the rim here. That is going to have to be a feature now. So anyway, when I sand these, I sand them all the way up to 600 grit. Now you might ask, why do I want to sand it so? Why do I want to sand it so fine if I'm just going to torch it and wire brush it afterwards? The reason is I want the high spots to be as smooth as possible. So let's get right to that. First thing I need to do is to get rid of wood chips. I don't want to catch the shop on fire. So when I torch, and shot. When I torch this, I want to get the surface all the same color, and that's a deep dark black. I didn't need to turn that on. While I'm torching, I don't want to leave this torch in one location for any length of time, because I don't want to actually catch the wood on fire. I just want to have it get a nice deep brown. I always start in the center, and then I move to the rim afterwards. So last Thursday of this last week, I had a film crew here, and we did an article for Woodcraft Magazine on exactly what we're doing here today. So that should be coming out in a couple of months, I guess. So after you get it all charred, I want you to take a look at it and make sure that you didn't miss any spot. Like here's a spot that's a little bit lighter. I'm going to torch that a little bit hotter. Sure. Thank you. You can, if you overburn, well, yes, depending on what you want out of it, if you overburn it, you're going to get some checks and cracks. So you want to be careful about that. The more you burn it, the more texture you're going to get too. So just, play with it. Be careful about it. That's all. So we'll do a little bit more just to show that as long as we don't keep the flame in any one spot for too long, it should be fine. Nothing like burning a piece of wood in the shop. Okay, so from this point now, I want to wire brush this. And I normally wire brush the outside rim first. And I always try to brush with the grain, which is going to be in this direction.
If he's talking, I don't hear him. I don't hear any volume either.
Just give us a second, folks. We're trying to work on the audio here. But you can really see the grain well now in the bowl. Well, I did, yeah, he's unmuted. This is the crack production crew we got here. Little battery replacement.
How's that? Uh-huh. Good. And they were fresh a couple of days ago. All right, here we go. All right. All right. So now we've got this all brushed, torched and brushed. Now what really helps for me is to go with 1,000 grit paper, and I like to polish those upper surfaces with 1,000 grit. The main reason for that is I don't want to remove any wood. I just want to polish the high surfaces. So I got a piece of neoprene here. That keeps my fingers from getting hot. I left the lathe speed up. And some of you may be wondering what speed that is. And it's about 1,800 RPMs. Pardon? Yeah. Okay. So now we've got a nice polish on there. We'll go back to this view again. You can see how shiny that is, even though there's texture on that. For the last bit, I am going to just polish with the grain on the outer rim. I want to get rid of the dust right away. Get the dust out of all the pores.
Michael,
Yes?
could you use chips to do that same thing, to burnish the surface without sandpaper?
Possibly. Sure. Yeah. So I'm using, right now I'm using Doctor's Wood Shop microcrystalline bowl finish. Basically what I want to use on here is just some type of a friction polish, just because I want this to get dried right away. We're going to put it on the rag and just wipe it in there. Let's go back to here. And I did a test piece earlier. Half of the piece had this finish on and half was just raw. And after I put the color on, I couldn't tell the difference. So I don't know how important this step is, but it does seal the wood. And so I think I like using it. There we go. All right, so now that the finish is on there, I want to speed this. I'm going up to 1,800 again. And I'm going to burnish it in. Yes. So the polish is Doctor's Woodshop microcrystalline bowl, microcrystalline wax bowl finish. And it could be Mylan's. Mylan's is another one that I like. High build friction polish. That's a very good product for this particular project. So now, these products I really like. They are accent paste Gilders. You want to go overhead? Yeah, we're going to keep it on the end. Okay, so this is Chroma Craft accent paste, and it's Gilders purple. It says gold on the lid. I must have screwed up the lids. That's not really an issue. So I'm going to go with gold in the center, and I haven't decided on a color for the rim yet. So anyway, we put this on just with the finger. I imagine if you wanted to, you could probably use a nitrile glove or something like that. But this stuff wipes off very nicely. Soap and water usually comes off pretty well. So if I'm going to be doing two different colors, one color on the rim and one color inside, then I want to just be careful not to get this color coming out around. So as I bring the color up to the edge, I just make sure I come up and past and not out and over. This part of the process always makes me smile. All right, so that's the one I'm going to burnish it in, wipe it off and burnish it in. Just a blue paper towel. Very nice. This is where you're going to see scratches that maybe you got in with the wire brush or tear out that you haven't cleaned up. And I do see there's a couple of small scratches inside there. There's actually a little bit more color from my finger. They're not real noticeable, but that is something you want to be aware of that could happen. So let's go with blue on the rim. Blue and gold, color of my son's college teams. Clarkson's Golden Knights. So this is the part that just makes this really, really stand out. So here you can see I'm going right out and over the opening, but I'm making sure not to get my finger to go down into that opening. When I start to buff this off, I want to be sure that I start in the bowl and pull the rag out and over the edge. So what's in the bowl already is the gold is already set, and that won't really come out. But if I went the other direction, I would actually move the blue into the bowl, and I don't want to do that. Okay. Got that one there. Get another piece of paper towel without the gold on it. Wow, look at that blue. Before I touch anything else, I want to wipe my fingers off a little bit. Just want to make sure I don't get this color where I don't want it. So as you can see, this is a really quick process. Of course, the sanding takes a little bit of time, and you didn't see that, but that just makes Poplar something completely special, very special. Whereas, you know, just the backside is just plain ordinary. It's a pretty block kind of wood, but All right, let's try that. Whoa, look at that. So that's poplar. Let's take a look and see what happens with ash. So this piece is already turned. And what I've been doing with these little bowls, at least some of them anyway, is I've been making the bottoms just rounded. And so these are going to be rocker bowls. Maybe later. I don't think so. I don't think so. As a matter of fact, there's someone that I know that sells them, Carol Hall. Yes. Carol Hall is a dealer for these things, and these are, you'll have to talk to her. They're just excellent pieces. Excellent. Carol, what is your website? thecarolhall.com. There you go. Call her up, email her. They're awesome. So this is already sanded to 600 grit. And we are gonna, so I keep turning this on because there was a time when I was torching like this, and it's not worth it. My speed and my ability to move this torch is not the same as the wood lathe. So I have to do this by hand. There again, heating it up pretty evenly. Making sure the color gets the same all the way around. It's not all real dark just yet. Let's see. I'm going to do it overhead for just a little bit. I want you to see kind of where my hand is here. Okay, so my hand's on the chuck and the flame's here. So I want to be careful not to burn my hand. So I'm going to work out front here. You could reach to the back side of the lathe and turn this with the hand wheel. It's a little bit awkward. So if you're going to hang onto the chuck like this, just be aware that you don't burn yourself. Let's go back to there. We do want to be aware and careful of the edge, because the edge is very thin and it will catch on fire much quicker. Once it catches on fire, you are losing wood fast. So just having this flame against there is one thing, but when it's actually, the wood itself is actually burning, you want to get that put out quick. Incidentally, I do want to show you something real quick, like. So this piece here, where the red is, when that was finished, it was just like this piece. No defects, okay? That's got a hole in it. As I was torching the backside, some embers had lit here, and they followed some wormhole, and I had this held in a vacuum chuck, so the vacuum was drawing the ashes like right into the machine, into the vacuum machine, and I couldn't put it out because I didn't have any water handy. It was on the other side of the shop. But by the time I got the water, that's the result. I think it's kind of interesting, a happy accident maybe. So I do have a cup of water sitting right behind me now with a little brush, a little acid brush, because things can happen you don't expect. That wormhole did not show up at all. It was not visible.
Michael,
yes.
Are there any woods that you shouldn't use?
I don't know. I didn't really do too many woods just yet, but I imagine some of the exotic woods could be a bit hazardous.
And the blue that you're using, is there a name for that blue?
Yes, there is a name for that blue.
Blue pearl.
It's called Gilders Blue. And there's Gilders Gold and Gilders Green and Gilders Purple. They're guide colors. They're not fuchsia. They're not plum. I don't even know what these colors are. But anyway, it's blue. I know what blue is. So, yeah, definitely guide colors. Keep the hand out of the way so we don't get burnt. Now I'm seeing some checking right here. You guys can probably see that. That may have been in the wood and I just didn't notice it. I don't think it's from the heat. The heat is opening them up for sure. But I barely got that hot there. It's still sort of on the brownish side, not black.
Is there a reason you're using MAP gas as opposed to propane?
MAPS gas is what I have. Yeah.
Good answer.
Propane would be fine. Butane. So we could use butane too. And butane is, you know, these little chef torches. They're slower though. They're not as powerful.
That could using a butane torch help with the checking then?
It might. But this is cracking so fast that I think it was there. Now I don't really worry about the checks too much. They're going to add a little extra interest to the piece.
Michael, could you wet the edge to keep it from burning? Could you wet the edge?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, on the back side. You could hold a wet rag there or just wet it. Cool. All right. So this is just a lot of fun. Now we're going to wire brush this out. We're going to wire brush this pretty hard. I want to get as much texture in here as I can. And so it's just a bristle brush, short bristles. I use it for cleaning my wood burning tips when I'm wood burning. Oh, man after my own heart. Now here is a wood burner. I actually have one. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I might have to try that someday, maybe outside without. All right, so let's get some more of this char out of here. You can see I'm trying to stay with the grain, trying to get the all the char out of the softer grain. Trying to get the char off the whole thing, but trying to get the softer grain out and deeper. I like this little circular section right here. Oh, by the way, if you set this up properly, if that's the right word, you can get this circle right on the very bottom, and I have one over there that I'll show you a little later. And it just has a really nice pattern to it that way.
Someone would like to know how stiff the wire brush is. Is it fine or is it coarse? It looks like it's brass, right?
It's brass, and it's not real stiff. I mean, you can see my finger on there.
And Bob would like to know if you've tried using your sandblasting cabinet on this.
I have sandblasted wood quite a lot. I sandblasted wood pretty much, but I've never sandblasted the burnt wood. So that's something to try. Maybe I'll try that. All right, so we are wire brushed. I want to get the dust out of the pores again. That again. You can see that there's a little bit of a sheen on there, but once I take that 1000 grit over there, it is going to be it's just going to pop. It's going a little faster than that. So this would be a good time to have the dust collector on, or your dust mask. You can see this shining up already. And it's only shining the upper surface, but the highest spot. Now we could leave this like this, just put some finish on. And if I was to do that, I would start probably with 220, 320 maybe, and I'd get some of this back to what's going to be almost the ash color, the lighter color, and just give it a little bit more interest by having it not all the same color like this. All right, so now finish. My face shield was knocking my mic off. Now, I want to get this fairly slow. Because this is a convex surface, I can put the finish on while the lathe is running, which I like to do. I'm going to do overhead on this one. I want to try not to get this on the surface that's not burnt yet, because once I burn the other surface, if there's finish on there, it tends to want to catch on fire. You don't ask me how I know that. So anyway, turn this up, burnish it in. And now we're going to put on some green Gilders paste. Or shall I say it's called Gilders Green. Chroma Craft. Accent paste. I was using Gilders paste before from Baroque. And there's another brand that you can get. You used to be able to get it at Michael's and AC Moore's and places like that. I think they stopped selling it because it kept getting hard. And when I first started doing this, I did not have Chroma Craft's colors here. I had the Gilders paste. Once it got hard, I was taking those circular crayons, for lack of a better way to describe them, and rubbing them into these pores while the lathe was spinning. It worked. It was labor intensive. As you can see how easy this stuff goes on. This stuff just goes on really, really easy. The hardened Gilders paste went on quite difficult. While you're doing this, you want to be sure that you do fill in all the pores. If you leave some of the pores empty, it will show through later. When we buff this off, you'll see that. This part here always is the part that just wakes the wood up, wakes the whole design up. You can see all the stripes where the softer grain had burned out. I'd like to get some more colors. I'd like to use red. Red's one of my favorite colors. Chroma doesn't have that in this style just yet, and I'm looking into other methods. There's some kind of material I was talking with Dick Blick about. It's a wax-based material that comes neutral, and you add your own colors to it. I only found out about it yesterday or the day before, so I don't have it to try. But when I get it figured out, I will probably show you how to use it. Or not if it doesn't work. That's possible too. Don't be afraid to try something new though. Like whoever would have thought that we could just stick a torch to the wood. I mean, it's just sacrilege, right? Burning it. I often do things that are not meant to be done, but they're fun to do anyway. Okay, let's see. I think we got just about all of it done. I want to take another quick look. See, there's a couple spots right there that I missed. Another one. Okay. Clean my fingers off. Oh. And then we're going to burnish this surface. Incidentally, when I do these bottoms, I'm holding this in a vacuum chuck. The top's already finished, and I'm using a vacuum chuck to hold this. This piece is not done that way. As a matter of fact, if I decide to finish this piece, I will have to hollow it out later. Right now, I was just holding that. So that is the bottom of an ash where the grain is basically straight across.
Michael?
Yes.
Does the friction polish still feel slightly tacky?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
And someone wants to know where the word fire sand came from.
Fire sanding came from our little group of wood turners in eastern Pennsylvania, probably most likely the Keystone turners. And we've just been using it ever since. Carol, did you come up with the name fire sanding?
Absolutely.
Do you put finish over this?
No, I don't usually. No. But isn't that something? I mean, that's just from plain ash to that. So we've got a couple of other shapes we could do here. Now, who would take a piece of burl and torch it and color it? Too pretty to color, right? Is that what we always say? Oh, you can't do that. Well, we're going to do that because we can. Yeah. So this is just a small piece of big leaf maple burl, and this is some of that, which is very soft. It's a very soft wood. I've got the backside roughed in, not finished turned. I'm going to do the inside. Put the face shield back on. You get the bevel of the tool going in the direction you want to cut. Nice and smooth. Hollow it out. Finishing cut with a 1/4 inch.
Nice and smooth. I've got a line out here, and I don't really know what that is, so I'm going to take a finishing cut across here. Now, before I go any further, I just want to take a look at this.
I think we're good to go. So I'm going to have to sand this one. I don't have one of these set up ahead of time. So we're going to go with, we'll start with 150 and we'll move up from there. 180.
Maybe it's just my laptop. It may just be my laptop.
Okay. So normally I'd have either a dust mask on or my air shield and the dust collector, but you guys don't want to see or hear any of that, so we're just going to do it. We'll filter this out with our lungs, I guess. There we go. Not a lot of sanding, so. So the way these turn out, they're sort of like a little geode. You never know what's going to be inside till you're finished. I just want to get the edge a little bit. So we got 220 or 240 grit going here. Some 320. $400. You'll notice I didn't stop and check to see how well I was sanding it. I'm not going to worry about it on this piece too much, but I think I'm doing an okay job anyway. It feels really good. It looks really good. I'm going to trust that it is. 600 grit. Okay, so fairly quick. This is probably 4 inches in diameter. There is a check in here. That's going to add a little bit of visual interest to it once we, right there's the check right there. Once we get this fired and colored, that'll take up a little bit of the coloration and it'll just accent that piece. It'll look like a little piece of lightning bolt or something. So let's use the butane. One of the reasons I'm using the butane for this, it's a smaller object. The opening is a little smaller and I don't need that much force going in there with the heat. You see, it's not much slower. If you have one of these, just go with one of these. Of course, if you have the bigger torch, you got to go with the bigger torch. It's just fun. It's just fun. The editor and the photographer the other day were just like, they were just kind of flabbergasted that we were catching wood on fire. They thought it was really cool. All right, so there's really no grain pattern here, but since this is a softer wood, I'm going to go with my softer brush once I find out where I laid it down. Does anyone else lose tools just like that? There it is. So we don't have a set grain direction here. I'm just gonna go around like this. Keep it cleaning out. Did you hear that little thump thump noise? The plastic, I bumped into that. We want to be aware of that. I mean, I barely bumped it, but the surface is, you know, it was sanded to 600. So a little bit of a bump like that on a softer surface, it tends to show through. So if it does show through, I'll show it to you. I'll point it out to you.
So 2 questions for you.
Yes.
The larger torch is not propane, it's MAP gas,
yes.
right? So it's MAP gas. Carol is asking what kind of brush that is, and that's just a dish brush, right?
It's just a plastic dish brush. Yep, that's it. Yep, nothing fancy. Okay, we're going to blow the dust out. Oh, that's got a nice texture to it. Really nice texture. Not real coarse, but just a real nice texture. All right. So let's get another piece of 1000 grit to polish those upper surfaces. At the speed this is running, it's a good idea to have a piece of neoprene to keep your fingers from getting hot. How's our time looking there, Thomas? 5 to 8. Okay. Now we're gonna get rid of the dust again. Yesterday, I was doing a little bit of a practice run yesterday, and I was brushing pretty hard, and I was just saying, you need to brush it vigorously, and I forgot to use that word today. I wanted to use it. It's so very few times that we can use that word. Anyway, I just vigorously brushed that. I don't know, can we get a closer look? Let's see. No, I can't do that. How about this one? Okay, let's do that. I want to see if you can get that. Look at that texture. Nice. So something as cool as this has got to be purple. So we're going purple. Hang on, we didn't put finish on this one, and let's not. Let's put it on here without the finish. Let's see what happens. So this is what creativity is about, just experimenting, trying things, trying different things. And I'm all about trying new things, trying different things. And I think it's going to be probably just as fun. I like putting the finish on anyway because it does seal the wood. But, oh, look at that. There's our little lightning bolts going through there. So I haven't really blended many colors together to get something different. I'll show you some tool handles I made that have different colors on them. They weren't really blended. They were just, you know, one color towards the top, another color towards the bottom. I'm not sure. I was just asked whether I can layer one color on top of another, and I'm sure you can, but I don't really know how it would turn out. I haven't done that. We could try that here. You know, gold on top of here would probably be pretty interesting. So let's buff it off first. Pull that color up around the back. cool. All right, let's take this off just to get a little better look at it. So the color's not as bright. Maybe it gets a little brighter with the finish on ahead of time. But anyway, so if I was to finish the back side of this, I would have the vacuum chuck on here, and I would chuck that up in the vacuum chuck, turn this off to make it nicely rounded bottom. The other thing we can do is we can leave a flat bottom on here and finish it off with just a jam chuck. I think I've got one of them right over here. So this won't work. And the reason it won't work is that when I flame the back of this, if I flame the back of this, it is going to melt neoprene on my jam chuck. So I think I have a smaller one in there. Ta-da. All right, so I'm going to put this homemade jam chuck in here, just a piece of walnut with some neoprene on the end. A thin inset ring. We could cut something in. Yeah, as a matter of fact. First piece I showed earlier. So this piece has got a couple of rings cut in there, and there's no reason you couldn't cut in a wider ring. Hard to torch that without damaging the surfaces next to that. So if you're going to do it, you want to be sure to just do whatever torching you're going to do first, and then cut that in.
I was muted for that question. So that question for folks who are listening at home, is it possible to create a thin black accent ring at the transition from the hollow to the flat? So the answer, it's like Jeopardy, the answer comes before.
Yes. What is yes, you can. All right, let's do some cutting.
So I'm going to get rid of a lot of this tenon. And just leave a little foot on here. That way I can fire sand and color the base, or just leave it polished. Since it is a burl, maybe we'll just polish it up and leave it polished. So incidentally, this is the way I would have finished off bowls for a long time. And this is how I did this. Since I got the vacuum chuck, that does make it a little bit easier. There we go. Vacuum chuck gets the tailstock out of the way. And allows you to work a little closer. It allows you to put a round bottom on this. but we're going to go with the flat bottom. I don't feel like getting out the vacuum chuck. It's just too loud, too obnoxious. I don't need to put you through that. I did do one of these big leaf maple burls earlier, and I will show that to you a little later. And I did not torch the outside, so I think I will torch the outside of this one. So that's 180, 240. $320. And this one is 600. I'm going to skip the 400 this time because I couldn't find it. There we go. Now, I've gotten the question
before that, will this affect the tail center because we're so close to the tail center, the live center? I don't think it will because I'm not actually getting, I'm not burning towards the tail center. I'm burning into the wood.
Mike, someone would like to know if the vacuum chuck pulls color out of the wood.
I didn't see that per se, but what I did see was it actually pulled some of the finish through the color. It didn't seem to be an issue. It wiped off and it didn't seem to have any effect on it, but you could see it ahead of time. One of them actually it did, you could see where it affected the color a little bit. And, you know, reapplying a little bit of the color into that area, I mean, you won't see it because it's one of the pieces over here and you won't be able to see it. So it's not a big issue. It does happen a little bit, but it's not a big issue. You don't want to get too hot toward the edge. One of the pieces I saw the color actually boiling a little bit on this edge here. There again, once I applied a new fresh coat of color on that, it didn't seem to be an issue. Colored right up. Okay, I think that's going to look pretty nice. Now, right in front of me. Let me get the char off of there again. That check opened up nicely there. You have to take those kind of things as a gift because otherwise you're going to be upset about it. So it's a gift. It opened up and I'm glad for it. And that will take the color nicely. What I'm going to do here is I am going to put some finish on this surface and we'll see what the difference looks like. Get the dust out. $1,000 grit paper to polish. Blow the dust out one more time. Nice texture, nice feel to it. And because it's the exterior, I can drizzle the finish on while it's running. Burnish that up. This time I'm using a rag, yeah. I was using a paper towel for the colors. Mostly that was a good way for me to make sure that I wasn't using the color to put the finish on, or vice versa. I didn't want to contaminate the next color with the finish. Good question. The question was, why shouldn't you use a rag on the lathe? And the reason for that is we don't want the rag to get caught on something and spin out and pull your finger off or pull your finger into the spinning wood. And that was a very good question. All right, so let's stick with purple. We're going to do purple on this thing all the way around. And we can see the difference then between finish in purple and no finish in purple. There might be a difference there for us. I'm going to try something. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to put a little gold near that crack and see if I can fill that crack with some gold just to see. I haven't tried it before, so I don't know if it's going to work. It'll probably cover everything, but it won't hurt to try it. Okay, so I'm going to buff this off first. I slowed the speed down just a little, just for a different effect. Got quite a nice sheen to it, doesn't it? All right, I want to get the tenon just a little smaller on here before I take this out of the lathe, because eventually I'm going to have to cut this off and maybe carve and sand the base a little bit. I'm going to go with a small spindle gouge. The reason I'm going with the small spindle gouge is I can get closer to this little nub here with the spindle gouge. The closer and the smaller I can make that, the less I have to carve off and sand off later. The other thing is I got some color on the foot, which if I'm not going to color the whole foot, I don't want to have color on any of it. So I can cut some of that back. So if this was on the vacuum chuck, of course, we could just cut this right off. Polish it right up, right where it's at. And then that would just be that. A little bit of the shear scrape just to kind of even that out. Nice, nice. So this is 240 grit. I think I got a fairly nice cut on there. I want to try and keep the sandpaper off the color, just on the foot. And I'm going to finish sanding the rest of that after I cut the nub off. So let's go overhead. Not really a lot of difference. I think the outside is just a little bit shinier. It's a little bit more of a gloss on the outside. The color itself is about the same, I guess. I did say I was going to try and put some gold in there, so let's do that yet. I don't know, to tell you the truth. I haven't tried that. Yeah, I was asked if I could use a solvent to remove the excess gold. And I don't know. This is actually the first time I've done this like that. I think it's just enough. There's a little bit of gold bled into the purple, not considerable. But so we can put a little bit of purple back over top of that. Try and keep it away from the crack. And hand buff that so as not to drag one into the other by spinning it. There we go. Just that little accent. Yarn overhead. We could probably do that on the face as well. Why not? While we're at it. That. Wipe off it's not needed. Did you see what I just did? We could find out about the solvent, but I already know the way to fix this is to put a little bit more purple over the top of the gold. Been there, done that. It doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to cover. Actually, you know what? This is giving it a nice tone. Could be that I wiped too much of the color off there for a second. That might just be what happened. Let's get a fresh paper towel. One that doesn't have gold on it. It's a wax-based material, so a little bit of hand buffing is going to just burnish that up quite nicely. So these are what I call happy accidents. You know, there was that check in there, and I did, like I said, I wasn't worried about it. I figured we could do something with it, and that is that. So I think in about a minute or two, I'd like to take you over to a table full of things that we've done, that I've done earlier this week and last week, getting ready for the photo shoot and getting ready for the demo. Yes.
Give me a second. So does the back, oh, sorry. When you're burnishing the color, are you trying to generate surface heat?
A little bit. Yeah, I am trying to generate a little bit of heat on the surface, just to give that a nice sheen. The speed at 1800 seemed to be a little bit high. It seemed like it was actually taking too much of the color off. And so I went down to about 1,000, 1,100, something like that. Anyway. So, yes.
Can you apply that with a brush rather than your fingers?
It's a paste material, so if the brush was thick enough, I imagine you probably, or stiff enough, I imagine you probably could. I haven't, I like using my fingers. I like getting that tactile feel with it. But if you wanted to, I don't see why you couldn't. I don't see why you couldn't. So let's go over here. So there's all kinds of things we can do with this process. Here's a tool handle I made the other day, and it is ash with some gold, green, and blue on it. The difference between ash and red oak is not great. The red oak, the grain's a little bit tighter, but that's probably just the way the tree grew. If you look at the two circular areas of the grain there, I mean, they look very, very similar. One of the ones that surprised me the most was this one here, and this is mahogany. Mahogany gets to be this really cool kind of a color. You can see I didn't color the back. I did leave a little rim on this, and that's one way that we can get some color on the side of the bowl without having to do the whole side of the bowl. Just leaving a little extra rim on there.
You've used mahogany for your ornaments as well, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, I did. I don't have one of those here handy right now, but one of the ones I really enjoyed with the ornaments was this red elm burl. So the red elm burl just has a beautiful color, beautiful texture, and this kind of wild grain pattern. There's not a lot of the burl pattern, but the grain that's there is not real even either. So red oak is pretty interesting too. So the finial one here is torched. If you're going to do a finial, just be aware that this really thin area here is going to burn off really quick. So don't hit that too hard with the torch, and make sure you got something there to put it out if it does catch on fire. One of the ones that surprised me the most was yellow pine. And that's what this is, yellow pine. You know, I was just in an experimentary mood, and I wanted to try like whatever woods were handy. And yellow pine got this really cool kind of a texture and color variance between the hard grain and the soft grain.
Is that with white Gilders paste, or is that sanded but with a purple Gilders paste? What's the color?
This was not a Gilders paste. This was, I believe this was an interference paint. I rubbed interference paint into it. Some of the coolest ones that I like so far are the bottoms of some of these here. Now this is the one I was telling you earlier where the circle was just about centered. And what a cool pattern. And that is one of the ash bowls. And so these don't have a foot. So they're rocking bowls. And I just like that. I like that they're a little bit interactive. Here's another one. This is one of the earlier ones. This is ash, and you see the knot in there. That knot left like a star pattern, which in the beginning was very cool. When I vacuum chucked this to do the bottom, it drew a vacuum straight through that knot hole. It pulled the gold filling out of there. It didn't come off the lathe. It stayed on the lathe. I was able to finish everything, but you could hear it as your tool would go past it and go. And I had to rub gold back into the other side. So this is the first of the big leaf maple burls. And that is just with gold and blue. And I left the outside natural. So this is one of the earlier poplar pieces. And that one's just really interesting, I think. I like the way the grain pattern kind of goes across an arc there. And, you know, I left the bottom of this one just natural as well. Poplar is one of those that we don't really tend to use for turning art's sake. They're used for spindles all the time. I mean, it's really good paint grade material. But we can also, I mean, we're painting here too, but we're giving it a different kind of a feel with the burning and the texture. This is another poplar one. So these two are poplar. And just torched, if you could feel that, it just has a really nice texture. The difference between the high and low is a few thousandths of an inch, maybe a 32nd at max, a 64th probably, but it's enough you can feel it. And that polishing going with the 1000 grit just gives those high surfaces just a nice sheen. So this is one of the first ones I did out of white oak. And for me, the grain pattern is a little bit too tight. I like to have more contrast. I like to have more black surface, whiter black surface with the color. It's nice, it's pretty and all that, but it's still different. It's just different. Now this piece is ash. Had a really cool grain pattern throughout the middle here. I don't know if you can see that. It was a flame pattern. And I had it sitting over in the corner there for about 5 years. It was turned almost like this here from the get-go, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it. So I've decided that it is a paperweight and a paperclip holder. That's perfect. This is a test block I did. This is the one I was telling you earlier that I did one half with finish and the other half without. And I'm fairly sure, I'm not positive, but I'm fairly sure that this half is finished on and this half is not. And I mean, it's hard to really tell the difference, which side has finish and which does not. And on a flat surface like this, all the burnishing you have to do by hand. You gotta polish this with a rag and to get that nice sheen on there. But still, same process. I didn't sand this one a lot because it was a test piece, and you can still see some of the bandsaw marks in here. But I did polish the upper surfaces with 1000 grit yet. I mean, I knew we were going to have those marks in there, but I wasn't really trying to get a finished product, just trying to test to see how it would react to either having finish or not finish.
Have you tried to actually like cross grain scratch a pattern in with the wire brush, then see what happens when you put the Gilders paste in it? Like give it a texture or a cross hatch texture or something?
I did not try to do that. I mean, I have done it. Here's a piece right here. I don't know how well you can see that. Maybe we can get close enough to see that. Look right around the opening. There are scratches there. And those are because I wire brushed this while the lathe was running. And I knew it was going to happen, but I wanted to have something to show you. Another thing is there's a little divot on the rim here, and that is, you know, it's a little hole. If you don't take care of that in the turning and sanding, it's gonna, I mean, it's called accent paste for a reason. It's definitely going to accent that. So I left this one like this just to show you some of the things that, you know, some of the drawbacks. You know, you want to be aware that you get all of that out. So here's this piece with the burn mark in there. Since it burned out, I just had to put red in there. The red just was like, all right, we're going to go ahead and have a hole in there. We may as well just be red, and pow, look at that. The interesting thing is, I mean, that surface was just as nice and beautiful as this green surface. No defects anywhere until that little hole in the end, which I did not see until that little spark was just following right in there. The vacuum chuck really helped that go a lot faster. It was just drawing that right inside. So I guess we can go to questions. Does anyone have any other questions they'd like to talk about? Anything they'd like to know? Thomas asked me earlier before we started, what was something about me that no one knows that they should know? And I don't know, I'm a pretty open book guy. When I was much younger, like I was just telling them at dinner time today, that I was very shy in school. So to be up here and talking to a world full of people is not something I ever thought I'd be able to do as a young teenager. But I think this was great. It's nice to get out, you know, to be here and talking with all you folks. When we get a chance to open Tuesday night up here, I'm hoping to have people come back and just be my friends here, be my family here again.
Awesome. Does anyone out in Etherland have any questions they want to put in the chat? We can get Mike to answer them. Nope. Thank you.
Okay.
That's not a question. Put a question at the end. You must have explained everything perfectly. Michael Kehs Woodwork.
There you go. That's me. MichaelKehsWoodworks.com. There's an S, don't forget it. If you want to, come email me, we can chat.
Are you doing any class? I know you're doing some teaching. Are you doing it when we're back in together? Will you be doing classes on this stuff?
Yeah. Yep. I actually, one of my students this past Wednesday, we were doing this. When I get into a project like this here, you know, I don't just do one or two. I gotta, and anytime you do something, it's a good idea to do more than one. Do a dozen, do 2 dozen. Get comfortable with it. Push the limits. Figure out what else can you do. So I didn't get to it today, but I was prepared to do. You know, I didn't do this pattern yet. Over here, I've got a handle, a knob that has this done to it. And for a knob, I mean, this is great. This is a great process for a knob because it actually gives you a little bit of texture, and it's a tightening knob. I have a bolt through it, and it tightens up a clamp that I needed for my my laptop holder. My cabinet doors, I had to put some cabinet doors on over here, and they needed a handle. So turned and burned, colored, cut into 4, glued on. Yeah,
Michael?
I think to be able to show that to you, but yeah, you can use it wherever you like.
Michael, can you give us a close-up of one of the jars of the coloring paste?
You can probably show the knob and the.
Don't shut the lid of that laptop.
Yeah.
Open one of the doors.
There you go.
He's showing this.
So this is a mahogany handle, turned on the lathe, bandsawed into 4 pieces, and glued onto the corners. I just thought it was a nice, elegant way to make those doorknobs. And they're about 4 feet tall, middle of my cabinet. Oh, incidentally, if you want to make a handle like that, do the turning, find the exact center of a square, find the exact center of a square, glue this thing down there, and use that square against the fence on your bandsaw. And you can just bandsaw it right into 4 pieces, sand the edges up, and away you go. That's exactly what I did. With these here, yep.
You always do it by hand.
Not this, because this needed, in the background, Mark was just saying that I always do those by hand, and he's probably right, but this time I didn't. This time I actually did glue it down, double-side tape it to a small piece of plywood. And the reason I didn't do this by eye was because it needed to fit the corner of 4 doors, and I wanted it to be, you know, right in the corner of the 4 doors. So.
Michael,
I did it all. You guys understand it? I hope to see some of this in some show and tells, or send me a picture of what you're doing if you're going to try it.
And you did record this, yes?
I think I did. I hit the record button, or you hit the record button, or something.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome.
question.
Good luck, man.
Thank you, guys.
Take off.